Welcome back, I'm George, and this are 137 features for the Galaxy S25 and S25 Ultra. We of course have customization features, we have new improvements, performance optimization, and because it is 2025, we also have a lot of AI functionalities. In fact, that is going to be the first portion of this video, all of the new AI features available for this phone. So let's come to the settings, scroll all the way up to the main settings page, and tap on the third menu called Galaxy AI. This is where we will find every single AI feature that's available for the phone. And for some reason, not all of these features are turned on by default. So I suggest you go one by one, first off, making sure that every single one of these features is turned on, so you can take advantage of it during this video or in your life. But anyways, once that's done, let's come back here to the main settings page, because the first AI functionality that I want to show you has to do with the assistant. So let's swipe all the way down to advanced features right here, then tap on side button, and then tap on long press, because for the first time, the main assistant, the default assistant for the S25 and S25 Ultra is not Bixby, but the Google Assistant. And more specifically, the new Google Assistant, Gemini, which is an AI assistant that gives you a lot more functionality than the old OK Google, which was fine for the weather and stuff like that. But this is much like ChatGPT. It is a full-on AI intelligent assistant. So you can long press on the button and rapidly access Gemini. Now, if you are pressing on the side button and getting the old OK Doodle assistant instead, you have to come back to the main menu, tap on Google, then tap on All Services, and then swipe down to Search Assistant in Voice. Here you'll find a new tab called Gemini, which you'll have to turn on or set up, something that, as you can see, I have already done, so the phone can automatically change or replace the Google Assistant for the new Gemini. Now, that being said, and beyond all of the new cool functionalities that you get with an AI assistant, I think my favorite Gemini feature is this one right here, the live conversation, which is basically going to let you have, as I said, a live conversation with Gemini, so you can go back and forth discussing topics instead of it being a more robotic, text or prompt where you have to wait for it to respond and this is a lot more seamless. Hey Gemini, so I've been having a little bit of back pain lately. I think it's because I sit down for too many hours during the day. Please give me some tips to fix this.
It might help to set a timer to remind yourself to check your posture throughout the day. As for getting rid of the pain, gentle stretching exercises can work wonders.
But anyways, that being said, let's move on to some of the new AI features we can find on the browser. So in this case, unfortunately, we cannot use Google Chrome or pretty much any third-party browser because they are only available with Samsung Internet, which is the official Samsung way to browse the internet. So here, as you can see, if you are browsing any type of article or website, you'll get a new AI button right here at the bottom, which you can use to summarize the article or translate it, which were things you could do last year with the S24 Ultra. But this year we get a new feature called Read Highlights Out Loud, which is not only going to summarize the website, but it is also going to read it out loud so you don't have to be paying attention or even looking at the phone. But anyways, let's actually go one by one, taking a look at these features so you can see how they work. Let's tap first on Summarize, which, as I said, is going to create very fast, by the way, a little summary of the entire website, so it takes up less time of your day to read. Then we have the option to translate, which, as you can see right here, has turned this article from English to Spanish, giving you, as you can see here at the top, the option to select what language you want to translate to. I think you get Chinese and Spanish by default, but you can add as many languages as you want and then translate to those languages. So if you find a weird article or website that's in Japanese or Brazilian and you don't really understand, you can rapidly translate to your language using AI. So it's not going to be a cheap Google Translate, conversion, but a much more intelligent and contextual translation because it's using AI. And third, as I said, we have the option for the AI to summarize and read the article out loud. So as you can see, once again, in a couple seconds, it is going to start reading the article, in this case, in Spanish, because I had translated the article before. So let's actually tap here so it starts reading it in English. We can even, as you can see, choose to pause the narration. We can resume back to a previous point or skip forward. And we can choose the speed at which the AI voice is reading the article. And well, just as a little demo, this is how it sounds.
The company also highlighted a robust 2025 release schedule, including Mafia, The Old Country, and the highly anticipated Civilization VE, which has already received positive early feedback.
But anyways, that being said, let's move on to one of the most impressive AI features on this phone. So let's come to the gallery. As you can see, I have recorded a little video before so I can show you the feature. In this case, it is a video that I recorded with a kind of noticeable rain noise in the background. On the new S25 Ultra. So you are listening to me right now in combination with a relaxing background noise of rain. So let's see how good of a job the S25 Ultra does. As you heard in this video, there was a very noticeable background noise, in this case of rain, that if you are in a professional setting of any kind, could be a problem. So in this case, let's tap on the edit button right here, and then tap on this new erase unwanted sounds, quote unquote, button all the way to the right. Once we're here, as you can see, there is a button called Audio Eraser, which if we tap is going to analyze the sound and separate your voice to the background noise, which you can, as you can see, swipe all the way to the left to mute, essentially canceling out that background rain noise you heard earlier. And as you will hear right now, it actually works pretty well. This is a test for the new audio eraser feature on the new S25 Ultra. So you are listening to me right now. I'm not really sure how this is translating through my microphone, but I can assure you that the first video, the original video, had a very noticeable background noise, and this updated video has no background noise at all. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to one of the most popular and highlighted AI features on the S25 Ultra, which is this one right here, the AI Select. Now, unfortunately, by default, it is not available because to access the feature, as you can see, we have to enable the Edge panel. So let's come back here to the main settings page. Let's then tap on Display and scroll down to, there it is, on the bottom, Edge panels. We have to turn on this feature before we can use the AI Select, because the only way to access the AI Select is by swiping on the Edge panel. So once you enable this feature, you'll find a little bar to the right side, I think, of your phone. It may be to the left side. It depends on the operating system version and the model of phone, but generally it's to the right. As you saw now, you can tap and hold to place it anywhere you want in any, of the corners of the phone. And then once that's done, you just have to swipe it out to reveal all of the quick toggles that it brings. Now on your phone by default, it may look a little different. I'll show you how to customize the Edge panel later, but for now, let's focus on AI Select. Once you tap on this feature, you'll get a sort of glow all around the phone, indicating that you can circle or draw around anything you want to get AI functionalities based on what that is. So in this case, if we circle an icon on the homepage, we'll get the option to translate the text, create a generative edit, and of course, all the basic screen capture, pin, share options we had before. But as I said, this is contextual. So depending on what you are selecting, you'll get different options. In this case, if we select a picture of Brad Pitt, as you can see, we will have you'll see it now, a range of different options. In this case, we can set it as a wallpaper because it identifies it's an image, and we can create a generative edit based on that image. As you can see, we can actually reframe and then generate the empty space using AI, which is, as you can see, once again, like many of the AI features on this phone, pretty fast. It's going to take a couple seconds. And even though it is not perfect, as you can see, there is a clear white line here indicating the end of the original image. It actually does a pretty convincing job. Then to the right, we also have the option to sketch to image, which means we can actually draw anything we want, like a second bow tie, and the phone is automatically going to create a more convincing and more professional looking bow tie with AI. So let's tap here on generate. There it is, a second bow tie that now looks almost real life-ish. The only little weird thing is this golden string here in the middle. But you know, this is Brad Pitt. Famous people do weird shit like that all the time. So it is actually very believable. And of course, here all the way to the right, we also have the Portrait Studio, which we can use to create AI images based on a real image. So let's choose a comic style, tap on generate, and in a couple seconds, we'll get a comic style Brad Pitt, which is as handsome as the original Brad Pitt. Let's try with a 3D cartoon. And once again, maybe not as handsome as the original, but still pretty handsome. But anyways, that said, and back here on my gallery, as you can see, I have two almost identical selfies. And well, I personally believe this one looks a little bit better than this one. You may think otherwise, but in this case, we now have the option for a third party, very intelligent person to decide, which is the Samsung AI. So let's actually swipe up on any of these two images, and we'll see a new option called Choose Best Face, which will essentially let Samsung artificially create an image combining the best background and the best face, even giving you the option to select which one you like better. Of course, there is barely any difference between these because I have taken very, very identical selfies. But if you have 5 or 10 different images with different facial postures and gestures, you may find this feature very useful to select the perfect combination of face, background, angle, lighting, so you can achieve the perfect selfie or the best selfie possible. But anyways, that being said, and more in that vein, let me now show you how you can create custom AI stickers or emojis so you can create funny combinations and send them to your family or friends. In this case, let me show you an example here with Drake's Instagram account. As you can see, if you tap on the emoji icon right here, and then you tap on the AI icon right here, you will be able to create AI emojis. In this case, I already created one of a dog on a suit, but you can essentially create anything you want. So let's create a new emoji. In this case, we can describe what we want. So let's say a dog wearing a very, very tiny tracksuit and an astronaut helmet. Then we can, of course, choose the style. So doodle, illustration, 3D emoji, retro logo. Let's actually choose illustration. There it is. And then tap on generate to get your, I don't even remember what I said, a dog with a, there it is, a tracksuit, a astronaut helmet, essentially exactly what I asked for. And then now the dog on a tracksuit and astronaut helmet is available as an emoji. Now, I have to say, all of these features that I've been showing you in the video are really great, but my favorite AI feature for the Samsung Galaxy S25 series is actually the new AI search bar on the settings. So as many of you know, on the search app, we have a little spotlight search, which we can use to essentially search for anything we want. But it has to be written in a very specific way so the app understands what we want. So if we want to access the display settings, we would have to tap on display, so the phone could understand and give you the display settings. But on the S25 series, you don't actually have to do that because there is a new natural language model that's been applied to the settings app, so you can essentially tell the settings what you want more or less, and then it will find the best settings for that. So if you type "my eyes hurt," it will not only give you access to the display settings, but also choose the right display settings to fix your problem. As you can see in this case, Eye Comfort Shield, Enhanced Comfort, both meant to alleviate eye sore. And as you can see, if we keep scrolling down, we'll find even more options from different apps or sub-settings, like this one, dim wallpaper when dark mode is on, that actually make a difference based on your problem. And I know this may not be a feature for super geeky people like me who know all of the settings, but for average people who don't really know where things are on the settings app, especially on this phone that has a lot of options, this is a true game changer. And well, of course, if we are talking about AI features, you need to know about Circle to Search. So if you tap and hold on the bottom of the phone until this weird gradient shows up, and then you circle anything you want, the phone will automatically perform a Google search that will display different information based on what you're looking for. So in this case, it is an image or an icon, so it's going to look for similar images of that same icon. But if you circle to search something different, like in this case, my dog, it will display different kinds of information. In this case, as you can see, it tells me what breed my dog is, gives me an overview of that breed. It gives me some images, some common questions. So depending on what you're searching, you'll get different Google results. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to talk about the home screen. In this case, the new home screen customization options with One UI 7. So as many of you know, by default on Samsung phones, we can arrange icons anywhere we want, we can create folders, and we can add widgets. That would be the basic customization options we've had for many, many years on these phones. But for some reason, this year, Samsung has chosen to go all in and give us a lot more options. So first of all, we get a lot more widget sizes, including this little pill-shaped widgets or this weird cloud shape widgets, which we can actually, as you can see, customize, adding all kinds of different shapes. So it's not just this one right here. We also have the ability, as you can see, to rearrange the size of those widgets in real time without having to access the settings, and with a lot more options for size. In this case, we have, I think, up to 4 or 5, depending on the widget. Then, as you can see, on top of the traditional folder size, we can also tap and hold and then tap on enlarge to create a bigger folder that can display information more clearly. And that gives you the option to access the apps directly without having to open the folder. On top of being very aesthetic, by the way, I think the combination of traditional icons, widgets, and the new big folders is killer when it comes to the way it looks. Then if we tap and hold and then tap on wallpaper and style, we will also have the option to customize the lock screen. As you can see, we can choose a different size and position for the time. Then at the bottom, we can also change the fonts for that text. We can change the width. We can make it a little bit bolder. We can make it a little bit thinner. We can also choose a different color between a set of defaults right here, or we can come to the color palette and choose exactly the color we want. Then if we tap on style, we also have different layouts for the time. So we can make it look different depending on the kind of information we want to display. Then a little bit below, as you can see, we also have the option to add widgets. In this case, I have the weather widget and the battery widget, but you can choose between this list right here. And there is actually 2 different widget sizes. So if you choose the small one, you can add up to 4. And if you choose the big one, you can choose up to 2. And of course, my favorite lock screen customization feature, you can also change the quick toggles at the bottom. So in this case, by default, we get the flashlight and the camera, but we can change it to pretty much any other quick toggle on the phone, or any other app on the phone. So you can even launch Subway Surfers from your lock screen to be able to get right into the game as fast as possible. Now, that said, there is actually a new lock screen feature on the S25 series, although it's not showing up here right now. Because to turn it on, you actually have to have active background processes on the phone. So let's come to Spotify and start playing a song. Let's come to the clock app and start a timer. There it is. And now if we come back to the lock screen, as you can see, we have a new now bar at the bottom, which we can swipe to access the different active processes available on the phone. So for the Spotify one, we can actually pause and play the song. We can even enhance the now bar to get this very aesthetic looking play menu. And as you can see, if we unlock the phone, we also have access to the same now bar from the top of the phone. This reminds me of a little feature called Dynamic Island on the iPhone. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to the notification segment in this video, because there's actually a lot of notification features and customization options that you can use to improve your experience with the S25 Ultra. So let's first off come here to the main settings page, then scroll down to accessibility right here, then tap on advanced settings, and then tap on flash notifications, because this phone, on top of the traditional sounds and little pop-ups here at the top, has two more ways to notify you. So if there's something important going on, you can make sure you get the message. The first one is the camera flash notification, which, like the name suggests, is a camera flash. There it is. That is going to show up when you receive a new notification. And the second one is the screen flash notification, which, as you can see, is the entire screen essentially beeping with one chosen color between this list right here. It is kind of a shame that we don't have pure white, because that would be the most obvious. And well, of course, you can also select both at the same time. Now, as I said, this is not meant to be activated for every single app on your phone. This is for those times or those apps that you need to make sure you check because there's something important going on. So you get the option both for flash notifications and screen notifications to select which apps get access to this feature. So in this case, imagine you are going to receive a very important DM from your favorite celebrity. Well, you can activate it for Instagram, so you make sure you see it as soon as it gets to your phone. And well, of course, for maximum customization, Samsung gives you the option to select different arrays of apps for camera flash notifications and screen notifications. So imagine you want to receive a camera flash notification for Instagram, but you want to receive a screen flash notification for your messages. Well, you can do that. But anyways, that being said, let's come back here to the main settings page, then swipe all the way up and tap right here on the notifications menu. Here, of course, at the top, we have the option to select which apps send notifications. So if we tap, we will get the entire list of apps on our phones, and we will be able to select which, as I said, can or have the ability to send notifications. Now, I recommend you only select the ones that you actually care for, not only because it is going to be less distracting, but also because it is a really good way to save battery life. The more apps that have the permission to be updating in the background to send you notifications, the more battery life you will burn. So make sure that only the important apps are enabled. Then a little bit below, we have lock screen notifications. So we can select if we just want a little dot indicating that we have notifications, if we want a more extended dot array that explains what apps are, sending you notifications, and then the classic cards like you would have right here on the notifications page, going of course from most private to least private. Now, something very cool is that a little bit below here on show content, you actually have the ability to choose which of those apps show the actual notification message when it shows up on the lock screen. So imagine you don't really want people to know what message was sent because, maybe it's a private message, but you want to receive the card notification. Well, you can enable the card notifications and then come here and disable the ability for the app to show the content. So you will essentially just get a card with the name of the app and that you have a new message. And well, needless to say, if you want to do this with every single app, you don't actually have to be fidgeting here on the sub settings. You can just tap on hide content, and what I said earlier will apply to every single app on your phone. But anyways, back here to the main notifications page, let's tap here on status bar, because this is essentially going to determine how notifications show up on your phone. As you can see, I have icons selected, so you can see the little icons at the top. But if I select dot, it will automatically change to just one singular dot if I receive a new notification. And if I tap on none, there will essentially be nothing, even if I get a new notification. Also, for some reason here on status bar, we also have the option to disable or enable the battery percentage, which for some reason always comes disabled with phones. I'm not really sure why. So yeah, if the battery percentage doesn't show up on your phone at the top right, enable it right here because it is much better to know how much battery life you have left. But anyways, back here on the main notifications page, if you tap on notification pop-up style, you will be able to choose between smaller brief notification tabs or detailed notification tabs that you can actually interact with. As you can see on the example, there are two buttons at the bottom. That basically goes to say that if you get a phone call, you can decline the phone call directly from the pop-up. If you get a new message, you can reply straight from the pop-up. So yeah, they are going to take up a little bit more space, but they are a lot more useful. Now, for some reason, there are no customization options for detailed notifications, but if you tap on brief, you can actually change the way they look. You can change even the edging of that notification. You can change the effect. Then you can tap here on color to change the way the pop-up looks. You can tap on advanced to change the transparency, to change the duration of the animation for the notification. Yeah, a lot of customization here by default. That for some reason is not available if you choose the useful detailed notifications you can interact with. So either you get customization visually or you get functionality. Then of course you have the do not disturb menu, which you probably know what it is. If you turn it on, you will not receive any notifications, and you can either turn it off forever or you can select a time duration for it to be turned off, or even better, a schedule. So you can set it up between certain hours where you don't want to be bothered, and this will replay on a loop automatically without you having to come back to the settings every single time. But anyways, that being said, let's come back here to the main settings page because it's time to talk about one of my favorite segments in these kinds of videos, which is the performance optimization segment. So let's scroll all the way down to device care right here. And as you can see, first off, we get an optimize now button, which if you press it will essentially perform a series of background tasks and optimizations that will essentially clean up the phone so it can run as fast as possible. Now, of course, if you have the S25 Ultra, this will probably not be necessary, especially on a daily basis. But if you keep using this phone in 4 to 5 years, or if you have an older device, this can actually be very handy. Then, as you can see here, if we tap on memory, we essentially have the same option. We can clean up the RAM in this case, so the phone runs a little bit smoother, and we can keep more apps in the background. But by far the most useful feature is this one right here, RAM Plus. So I'm not really sure how familiar you are with memory on phones, but generally there are two kinds of memories installed on a phone. There is, of course, the RAM, which takes care of things you are doing right now, meaning all of the apps you have opened on your phone. And then there is the internal storage, which keeps everything. Not just the things that you are doing right now, but everything you've done or everything you have downloaded into your phone at any time. Now, usually the RAM is going to be a little bit faster than the internal storage, but it is also a lot more expensive. So phone companies include a lot less RAM than they do internal storage. That's essentially why we have only 12 gigabytes of RAM, but 500 gigabytes of internal storage. So to more or less fix this issue, Samsung created RAM Plus, which is essentially going to use part of your internal storage as RAM so you can expand how much RAM you have available on your phone. In this case, up to 8 gigabytes more, making the S25 Ultra virtually a 20 gigabyte of RAM phone, which is a lot. Now, of course, as I said, internal memory is not as fast as RAM, so it is going to be a little bit slower. But if you're planning on doing very demanding things with your phone, I heavily recommend you turn it on because it's going to make your experience and the performance on the phone a lot better. Now, more in that vein, here on the main device care settings, if you scroll down, you'll find a performance tab with the option to change the performance profile, as you can see, between light, which is the one you'll see comes on by default, and standard. Now, I'm not really sure why light is the one that comes in by default, but you should definitely switch it to standard, because light is essentially going to cap your processor so you can get a little bit more battery life. This, of course, is not necessarily a bad thing, but this phone has really good battery life, and it's very expensive because it has a really good processor. So the logical thing to do on this phone, on the S25 or S25 Ultra, would be to take advantage of the processor you've paid for with no compromises, because as I said, it has really good battery life. I don't think you need to make it better by compromising your processor, especially considering there's a lot more ways to enhance the battery life that don't take a toll on your user experience. But anyways, last but not least here on device care, let's tap on auto optimization and then tap on auto restart so you can enable this very useful feature. Summarizing, it is essentially going to restart your phone every once in a while so it can clean up all of the background processes and also make sure that your phone maintains its performance as much as possible over time. There is the option to do it when needed, which is going to do it automatically, not recommended. Or you can restart it on schedule, choosing the day of the week and the time at which you can do it. So you can set it up at night when you're sleeping and therefore when the feature is not going to bother you. But anyways, that said, let's take a quick break from talking software features because I want to talk about cases. This right here are my favorite cases for the Galaxy S25 Ultra. And don't worry, this is not a sponsored segment of the video. Nobody paid me to say this. I truly believe these are the best cases for the phone. The first one is this transparent MagSafe case, which beyond having really good construction quality, has, as I said, a MagSafe compatible ring, so you can use MagSafe accessories, meaning all of the magnetic chargers for the iPhone. And even better, we have this one right here, the official Samsung case, which on top of, once again, having really good construction quality, even with a metal ring for the cameras, I think the headline feature for this case is the price. It is only $20. I have left, of course, links for both cases down below in the description, just in case at the end of the video you want to take a look. But anyways, that being said, let's move on with more features for the S25 series. And I have to say, the coming features are my favorite by far in the entire video. The first one is called Quick Share, and it's an alternative to AirDrop on the iPhone. Essentially, it lets you share images, videos, and files between Android phones in a very easy and seamless way. You just have to tap on the file, then tap on Share, and if the other Android device is close together, you'll see an icon right here that then you can just tap, and in a matter of seconds, the image will show up here on the other device with no compression, which I think is one of the headline features for Quick Share. The image is not going to get compressed. The quality is the same. As you can see, 6.25 megabytes, 6.25 megabytes. We even keep all the metadata from the location and all that stuff. And as I said, you can do this with images, videos, files, anything you want between Android devices. Now, something a lot of people don't know is that you can do the same thing between an Android phone and an iPhone. This, in my opinion, is truly game-changing because it almost breaks this very high wall in the Apple ecosystem, essentially letting you freely share files even if you have an Android phone, which is one less block on the way, deterring you from trying other alternatives like Samsung phones or Android phones in general. So the way this works is essentially the same. You tap on Share, you then tap on Quick Share, but in this case, because it's an iPhone, it won't show up on Recommended. You will have to tap on QR code or link to then capture that QR code with your iPhone camera, then tap on the link. And as you can see, as easy as that, we get the image or video or anything you want ready to download on the iPhone. Then you just have to tap on this button right here. And once it's downloaded, you just have to tap on the search bar, then tap on downloads, and then tap on the file, to then tapping on this button right here, share it with whoever you want or download it to your gallery or file app. Now, a little unrelated, if you come back here to the home page and then you swipe from the right to access the control center, as you can see, like always, you have the option to toggle the flash like that. But something a lot of people don't know is that if you tap and hold on the flash, you can actually select the intensity of the light. So you can make it dimmer, so it's less annoying. Or if you need to light up an entire room, for example, you can make it as bright as possible. But anyways, let's move on to talk about one of the most essential components on this phone. If you come to the settings and swipe down to display, you'll find every single setting that affects the display and the way it looks on the S25 series. As you can see, the first toggle lets us choose between light or dark mode, which essentially changed the appearance of the phone, not just in the settings, but also here in the home screen. As you can see, everything looks darker than it did by default. And also something nice is that if you turn on dark mode, because it's turning off a lot more pixels because they are dark, it also saves a little bit more battery life, but not enough to make it, a must. So you can also select light if you think it looks better. Then you also have the option to select between manual brightness and adaptive brightness. And even better, here you have the option to toggle extra brightness, which is essentially going to unleash the maximum potential brightness on the display. Many phones have this potential, but they essentially block it for some reason. Samsung lets you access the full power of the display here on the settings, not just for when the phone thinks you need it, but for when you think you need it. Now, a little bit below, we have the option for motion smoothness. So we can choose between adaptive at 120 Hertz and standard at 60 Hertz. And in this case, it is definitely a matter of personal preference. For example, I notice a big difference between adaptive and standard, but my parents don't. They don't notice the difference between 60 Hertz or 120. So I recommend you actually try to see if you notice any differences. And if you don't, then set it to standard because it's going to save more battery life. A little bit below, we have the option for eye comfort shield and adaptive color tone, which, believe it or not, are actually the same thing. Essentially, both of these options are going to shift the colors of the display depending on the environment, so it is a little bit more comfortable to stare at, especially at night. Then a little bit below, you can choose between two screen modes, being natural and vivid, with the one at the top being the traditional Samsung style to display colors, and the one at the bottom being a new one that tries to imitate the way iPhones display colors. Of course, you can also change the font size and style, you can change the screen zoom, you can also change the resolution, which for some reason comes defaulted at full HD instead of quad HD, and I heavily recommend you crank it up because the battery life differences are insignificant, so you are going to essentially get a better resolution display with no compromises. And as you can see here on screen timeout, you still don't have the option to select more than 10 minutes. So your screen can be turned on without you touching it for 15 seconds up to 10 minutes. But if you don't touch it for more than 10 minutes, it is going to turn off. As you can see on other phones, like the iPhone, we have the option to select never. So the screen can be turned on and active permanently, and it will never automatically turn off, which I believe should be a must on Samsung phones. But anyways, back here to the main display settings, let's begin talking about the interesting stuff. As you saw earlier in the video, we enabled the Edge panels, which is this little menu right here that gives you more functionality with access to quick toggles and recent apps. Now, something a lot of people don't know is that if you enable the Edge panels and come here to the sub-menu, you can actually choose for more things beyond apps to be displayed on the panel. So if you tap right here, you can select apps, people, tasks, weather, more widgets, tools. So as you can see, when you display the Edge panel, you can actually swipe between all of those different modes, giving this little menu a lot more functionality. And of course, a little bit below, we have the option for navigation. As many of you know, on Samsung phones, there are two main ways to navigate around the device. We have the swipe gestures, which are the ones you've been seeing in this video. So we can go back like this, we can go home like this, and we can access the multitasking menu like this by swiping and holding. But if you like the classic ways, you can also tap here on buttons. So you can go back by tapping on the arrow, you can go home by tapping on the circle, and you can access the multitasking by tapping on these three bars right here. In fact, if you have buttons selected and then you tap on more options, you can even change the layout. So the three bars are right here to the left and the arrow is to the right. I think this is because at some point Samsung changed the layout on their phones, making a lot of people very confused and very angry because they had been using the same layout for 5, 6, 7 years, and all of a sudden it changed. So it is great that Samsung now gives you the option to choose the one you like better. And well, also a little tip for those of you who use the button layout is that you can actually switch between apps in a very fast way by double tapping here on the three bars, like that. So you don't have to access the multitasking and then swipe and then tap again. You can double tap and switch between, I think it's the two most recent apps. Now, of course, those were the essentials to go back, to go home, multitasking, but there is a lot more functionality when it comes to navigation on these phones. The first thing that comes to mind, of course, would be the split screen mode, where you can have two apps opened at the same time, for which we have to open the multitasking, then tap on an app, and then tap on Open in Split Screen View. There it is. Automatically, the app will take up the top half of the phone, giving you the bottom half for any other app you want. So you can open the calendar and the settings at the same time. Not a very useful combination, I know, but you can have the browser and your notes, or you can have a video conference while you're doing something else. This is actually a very useful feature. As you can see, if you tap on the bar in the middle, you can also select how much space you can take up for each one of those apps. So if you're not doing much with one of the apps, you can make it small and give more space to the app you're actually using. And if you tap on the middle bar, you can actually swap the position for those apps. There it is. Now, if you want to leave the split screen mode, there's actually three different options. You can swipe up from the bottom, which essentially lets you keep navigating around the phone while having that split screen app opened in the background. Then the second option would be to dissolve the split screen mode by swiping all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom. So you can just keep using those apps in full screen mode. As you can see, they are both in the multitasking menu. And the third option, and by far the most interesting, would be to tap right here in the middle and then tap on the star, so we can save the pair either to the home screen or to the app Edge panel. So if you tap, as you can see on home screen, automatically we will have the pair saved up right here, so we can then, close all the apps in the background without losing this pair right here. This is very handy for pairs or combinations of apps you use very often. So instead of having to form those combinations every time, you can save them to the home screen and then automatically open it up again. But there is actually a third way that we can use an app, and it's to use it as a window on top of the display. For that, we once again have to access the multitasking menu, then tap on the app, and then tap right here on Open in Pop-up View. There it is. As you can see, we will be greeted with a little pop-up that we can move around the display as we please. And even if you tap on any of the corners, we can rearrange to make smaller or bigger so it's more convenient depending on what we're doing. If we tap on the blue bar at the top, we can then turn it into a split screen app. There it is. So we can keep using it in a split screen mode instead of a pop-up mode. Or if we tap on the blue bar again, we can actually either enhance it so it becomes a full screen app, or close it by tapping here, which would be the equivalent of swiping up from the bottom, meaning it's still accessible on the multitasking menu. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to the security and privacy segment in this video. For that, let's come to the settings, then scroll down to security and privacy. And first off, as always, make sure that there are no yellow or orangey pop-ups on the main page. As you can see, my lock screen is protected. I have lost device protection. I have app security. App dates are okay. But on my account security, I have an issue with my Samsung account. Of course, depending on your device and what you've done, you'll have different yellow pop-ups, but as I said, try to fix every issue that you see in this page, just in case anything bad happens. But anyways, once that's done, as you can see a little bit below, we have the option for screen lock and biometrics, which is where we can set up our, PIN, password, pattern, or in terms of biometrics, face recognition or fingerprint. Now, personally, I do not recommend you use face recognition because it only uses one single camera on the front and therefore is not very secure. And then when it comes to the fingerprint recognition method, you can, of course, set it up the normal way, which is to use one finger and just set it up. Or you can actually delete every fingerprint you have installed on the phone and use another secret method to enhance the speed of the fingerprint unlocking mechanism. In this case, what you want to do is to add a fingerprint, as you can see, as you normally would, but instead of using just one finger, you are going to be using two fingers at the same time. You are going to fill up the percentage by using one finger at a time. Now, once the process is done, ideally you want to do this one more time using the same fingers. There it is. Bear with me. I know this is pretty weird, but you'll see why later. And once this process is completed, you'll have a faster and more reliable fingerprint mechanism on your Samsung phone, whether it is the S25, S25 Ultra, or any Samsung phone with a under-display fingerprint sensor. Now, of course, this is not going to be very noticeable because the normal method already makes it very fast. But if you have been using a Samsung phone for a while, for months or even years, you'll notice that it is a little bit faster and most importantly, a little bit more reliable, meaning it is not going to fail as much as it does normally. But anyways, back here to the security and privacy settings. If we scroll down and tap on more security settings, we will have the option to enable secure Wi-Fi, which is essentially your own free VPN for your Samsung phone. If you tap on continue and then tap on continue again and then tap on protect right here, there it is. Automatically, the phone will be connected to a Samsung VPN, which, as I said, is completely free, so you can use it as much as you want on your Galaxy phone, and therefore you can browse the internet safely. Now, this is not meant to be used all the time because it burns more battery life and it makes the ping or latency a little bit slower. But if you are going to do something dangerous in any way and you're scared that maybe your data could be stolen or something like that, then I highly recommend you come here and enable secure Wi-Fi. More in that vein, here on more security settings, we have the option to create a secure folder. So if you tap here and then you turn on add secure folder to your app screen, you will see that on your app gallery, there is a new app called secure folder that essentially does what its name suggests. It is going to essentially let you protect valuable information under a PIN, password, pattern, or biometric unlock, in which you can offload photos, videos, calendar events, notes, files, anything you want that you don't want other people to see. Mainly because if you exit the app and want to come back to it again, you will be prompted with either your fingerprint or face or PIN, so only you can access that information. But anyways, let's come back here to the main settings page and scroll down to the battery menu because I want to show you how to both make your battery last longer, and also how to make your battery health last longer. So let's tap here on battery. As you can see, the first menu is called power saving, which, as I said, is going to help you retain as much battery life as possible by giving you a list of potential limitations. You can block your CPU, you can dim your display, you can reduce the animations or the refresh rate, which are things that have an impact in your battery life. The good news, of course, is that you can choose which of these things you can turn on or off. So in this case, maybe you want to limit the CPU and you want to set the motion smoothness to standard, but you don't want to decrease the brightness or turn off always on display or turn on dark mode. You can choose what you're willing to compromise to get a better battery life. And once that's done, you can just tap here at the top to turn on the power saving mode. And second, of course, a little bit below, we have the battery protection settings, which, as you can see, gives you 3 tiers of battery protection, more specifically tweaking the way the phone is charged so you can retain the battery health for as long as possible. As you can see, we have basic, adaptive, and maximum, with maximum being, of course, the most taxing on your user experience, mainly because it is going to limit the percentage of charge you can have on your phone. So if you set it to 80%, your phone will never exceed 80% battery charge, which in my opinion seems a little too excessive. I actually believe that basic is the right option because it barely has a dent on your user experience, and it is more than enough to extend your battery health. And of course, if we keep scrolling down on the main battery settings, we will find the infamous wireless power sharing mode, which essentially lets you charge another phone, any brand of phone, by the way, it could be an iPhone, by placing it on the back of your S25 or S25 Ultra. So in this case, as you can see, I have just turned it on, and theoretically it should be able to charge. There it is, my Galaxy S25, and it should be able to charge my iPhone. If I tweak it a little bit to the top. Come on, do you not like the iPhone? Is it not your friend? I think it's because once you lift up the first phone, in this case the S25, it automatically turns off. So let's try again. And there it is, it's charging the iPhone. Of course, with these features, you can set a battery limit, meaning if your phone reaches 30% or less battery life, it will stop charging the other device. But you can also go up to 90%, which seems a little too excessive, meaning the only way you can charge another phone is if your phone has either 90% or more battery life. But anyways, that being said, and before we continue, I wanted to talk about one of the most popular things to do or features for Samsung phones, which is to make it faster by reducing the animations. For that, we have to scroll all the way down to About Phone, then tap on Software Information, and then tap 8 or 9 times, I don't remember how many it was, on Build Number. As you can see, in my case, it says developer mode has already been turned on, but in your case, it will eventually say that it's now been turned on, and then you can go back to the main settings page, and you'll see that the last tab is no longer About Phone, but Developer Options, a new menu. If you click it, you'll see a very long list of settings to change that are more meant for developers, hence the name. But if you keep scrolling down, you'll find these 3 options right here: Window Animation Scale, Transition Animator Scale, and Animator Duration Scale. These 3 options essentially control the speed of the animations on your phone. As you can see, by default, they are set to 1x or standard, but you can make them slower by increasing the number, or faster by decreasing the number. Of course, the most popular option is 0.5, which is going to cut the animations in half. And as you can see, it has a very big impact on the fluidity of the phone. Everything is going to be faster, open faster, and feel a lot more snappy as opposed to the default option. I would actually recommend you stick to either 0.5 or 1, because any of these options is just going to make it's going to make the phone just very, very slow. There are some people who believe that slower animations for some reason are more premium feeling, but I don't think so. I think slower animations, especially nowadays when we're used to the faster ones, are going to make your user experience a lot worse. So as I said, stick to either 0.5 or 1. Now, that being said, there is actually a more drastical way to increase the speed of the animations on your phone. If you swipe up to accessibility and then tap on vision enhancements, you'll find an option down here called reduce animations, which is actually not very descriptive because it is not going to reduce the animations, but delete the animations completely. So as you can see, there are not going to be any animations. Things are just going to snap in place without any delays, making the user experience as fast as humanly possible. Now, this is not recommended if you have a older or less quality device, because this is very fast and sometimes the processor can't keep up. But considering you have a Galaxy S25 or even S24 series, you'll probably be able to handle it just fine. And as I said, it's going to make the phone feel super fast. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to some quick tips for your Samsung apps. First off, we have the Samsung phone. As you can see, if we tap on the three dots at the top right, and then we tap on settings, we can actually change the call background style, so to say. So if we tap on call background, we can choose between the default, or we can select any image we have on the phone, or any of the other featured wallpapers or backgrounds that Samsung gives you by default. Although, as you can see, they are only three, they are not that different from each other, and this one simply doesn't really make any sense. Also, here on call settings, you'll find another option called Live Translate, which is one of those AI features I talked about at the beginning of the video. If you turn it on, you'll see that when you're making a phone call, there is a new option to activate the live translate, which is going to create a live transcription of your entire phone call. Or even better, if you set it up here on the settings, it is going to automatically translate what the other person is saying, so you can potentially maintain conversations with people that speak other languages. In this case, as you can see, you have a me segment, so you can say you speak English, and then you have a other person segment where you can select either English or any other language. In this case, as you can see, I think by default it's set to Spanish, but you can download any other language. Well, maybe not all languages on the planet, but you have a bunch of different options from the main countries you can visit or you can have any type of relation with. So you come here, download the language and set it up so the call is automatically transcribed and translated at the same time. Now, more in that vein, I'm not really sure how many of you actually use the Samsung Messages app, but if you do, there is this very cool feature where you can increase or decrease the size of a message by pinching like you would on a photo. So we can make it bigger like this or smaller like this. Of course, this is much better and easier than having to go to the settings and tweaking with the text size, font size sub settings. Moving on, for those of you who like to watch streamers, there is a very cool feature that you can enable to watch a live stream while you do something else. For that, you just have to enter any live stream on Twitch or any other app, and then swipe up to automatically create a pop-up window that you can then resize or reshape and even move around the phone so you can keep doing your productive work or anything else, even if it is more videos on TikTok, while you watch the live stream, which of course at any moment you can tap on and enhance to go back to the Twitch app. More in that vein, if you come here to YouTube and click on any video, you will be able to automatically access the full screen mode by swiping up like this, and then to exit the full screen mode by swiping down like this, which is much more convenient than having to tap on the video and look for the little icon right here. There it is. And then do that again to exit the mode. This is a much more seamless way to access full screen mode. But I would actually say that the cream of the crop when it comes to media features on this phone is that if you tap on the volume buttons and then you tap on the three dots right here, you can actually tap on this button to start a live translation of what the person is saying in the video. In this case, either to English, which is the native language of the person making this video, or to any other language you want. So if you're watching a video of someone that's not speaking English, maybe they're speaking German, and you want to access the information they have in that video, you can enable the automatic transcription and then translate that transcription to English and have access to essentially the information that the person is providing without having to speak a word of German. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to something that is actually new on the S25 series, which is that if you tap on clock, you will now have the option to group alarms together. So if you tap and hold on any alarm, you'll see that there is a new menu that you can use to select any alarms you want, and then tap on this button right here at the bottom to group them together. In this case, let's call this school. Let's imagine theoretically I was a teenager again and I had to go back to school. This could be a specific group of alarms that I have to wake me up so I can go to school. So it could be 6 o'clock, 6:30, depending on the day, I don't know. Then of course you can tap right here on plus to add individual alarms. You don't have to create groups necessarily. So you can have a bunch of groups of alarms at the top and then individual alarms at the bottom. And well, also something that I found really cool is that you can actually disable everything at the same time. You just have to tap and hold on anything on your alarm section, then tap on all, and then tap on turn off. And just like that, every single alarm on your phone will be automatically turned off. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to what is probably the most interesting part of this video. The camera segment, because we are going to cover camera settings, camera features, gallery settings, gallery features, and all of the AI features for both camera and gallery, which are not scarce and are actually very interesting. So first off, let's come here to the camera app. As you can see, it has seen a little redesign as opposed to last year. We don't have the main menu here at the top. Now it is hidden in this little menu that shows up like this, where you can still control all of your camera settings, exposure, live photos, the aspect ratio, as you can see. I think the only setting that remains at the top is the resolution. As you can see, for photos on the S25 Ultra, we have the option to choose between 200 megapixels, 50 or 12, depending on the camera. And for video, we have the option to choose between Full HD, Ultra HD, which is 4K, and 8K. Now, something very cool here on Samsung phones that a lot of people don't know is that you can actually record slow motion video up to 4K and 120 FPS, which is absolutely insane. Mainly because it is the combination of very, very high resolution and therefore a lot of sharpness and very smooth motion thanks to the 120 Hertz. We could say that it is, in a way, the best of both worlds. But in this case, on Samsung phones, specifically in this case the S25 series, we can make it even better. Because if we tap and hold on the video, we can actually make it even slower. More specifically, up to 4 times slower. As you can see, if we tap on the edit icon right here at the bottom, we even have the option to choose the speed of the slow motion between half and 1/16, which is going to make it super, super slow motion. As you can see, it is barely going to move. Let's play it. There it is. It is barely going to move. And thanks to AI, because this may seem very easy to do, but it's actually not. We need a lot of AI power to generate all of those extra frames. We can get a very, very smooth and very, very sharp video, something that was simply not possible before on any phone or any device. But anyways, moving on with more useful camera features. If you tap on either the volume down or volume up button when you're taking photos, you will automatically, if you tap once, take a single picture. And if you tap and hold, you will be able to take a burst of photos up to 100. There it is. Then if you switch to video and do the same thing, meaning you tap once, you will be able to start a video recording. And if you tap again, the video recording will end. Coming back here to photos, if you tap on the shutter and swipe down, you will be able to take a burst of photos, once again, up to 100. And on video, if you start a recording, you will actually find a shutter so you can take pictures while you are recording the video. Oh, and also, as you can see, we now have a new slider, which will help you create very, very smooth motion for your videos. Now, that being said, as you can see at the bottom, we still have the camera modes. In this case, by default, I have portrait, photo, video, and then more, which gives me the option to select any of the other camera modes available on the phone. Now, something a lot of people don't know is that if you tap on edit right here, you can actually select which modes appear on the bottom bar. So you can actually remove a portrait and replace it for dual recording or slow-mo video. And even, as you can see, arrange the position of these menus so you can customize this menu to appear in any way you want, depending, of course, on what you're going to do with the camera. But anyways, that being said, let's move on to the settings on the camera app, because of course that's where we will find all of the options to take better photos and videos. So as I said earlier, we have to tap on this button right here and then tap on the settings wheel all the way to the left. Now, as you can see, if we scroll all the way to the top, the first section we find is intelligent features, where we will find, like in previous years, the ability to scan documents and text. Then we can also scan QR codes. We have shot suggestions, which is essentially going to help you position the phone in a better way so you can better frame your photos and videos. And then we have intelligent optimization, which is essentially going to let you choose between camera speed and camera quality. So if you tap on minimum, there is going to be very little processing to the images, and therefore the camera is going to work very fast. But if you tap on maximum, the camera is going to take more time to process the images, making the camera slower, but also getting you better quality images. Then, as you can see a little bit below, we have the option to choose whether we want to swipe the shutter button to take a burst shot, which is what I showed you earlier, or to create a GIF. So if we select a GIF and go back to the camera app, as you can see, when we tap and drag on the camera shutter, it is going to look like we are taking a burst of photos, but in reality, as you can see, it is going to show up as a .gif. Although I have to say this is not very useful because you can actually turn a burst of photos into a GIF. You just have to tap on that burst of photos, the one that I took earlier. Then you want to tap on this menu right here, and then you want to tap on GIF, and just like that, it is going to turn that burst into a GIF. Then a little bit below, we have the advanced picture options, which is where we can choose between high efficiency pictures or standard pictures, with high efficiency being a little bit more practical because it takes up less space, but also with a little bit less image quality. Oh, well, and of course, the opposite. We also have the option to enable the Pro mode for pictures. In this case, whether it is a JPEG format or a RAW format. I generally don't recommend you turn on the RAW format because it is going to create very, very large files that also need a lot of editing. So if you're just a normal person, I suggest you leave it at JPEG all the time. Then back here on the main camera settings, a little bit below, we have the option to swipe up or down to switch between cameras, which, as you can see, if we enable, lets us swipe up or down to switch between the cameras. Very intuitive. Below on the video segment, we also have the option to turn on video stabilization, which I always recommend you turn on. It is going to make your videos feel a lot more smooth, a lot more professional. And here on advanced video options, we can choose once again between high efficiency or most compatible, which is the standard format. Although in this case, we can make up for the lower quality on the high efficiency format by tapping right here on high bitrate videos. So essentially, if we turn this off, this is going to be the worst quality, but also the most compact files. And then we can either turn this on or turn H.264 on, which is the option that I recommend if you are going to edit those videos on your computer. Once again, back here on the main camera settings, I always recommend you turn on both the grid lines and the level here on composition guide. As you can see, the grid lines are these 4 lines separating the display in 9 squares, which essentially help you compose your shots. And then the level is, well, as you can see, a literal level that helps you frame your shots so they are perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal. Oh, and by the way, do you see that little cross right there? That is the shot composition helper that I talked about before. This essentially tells me where to place the camera or the center of the camera so I can take the best picture possible. And of course, here on the camera settings, we have to talk about settings to keep. This is an option that I always recommend you turn on, because normally when you leave the camera app, everything defaults back to normal, which I think is the rear camera on photo mode. But if you turn all of these options on, you can actually leave the camera in a very specific setting, and it will maintain that setting after, 2, 3, 4 days, a week, a month, or a year. So if you're always taking video selfies in 4K, you can close the app and it will open again, taking video selfies in 4K. But anyways, that said, it is time to finally talk about the AI features on the camera gallery. So the way this works is when you tap on any picture and then you swipe up, the phone is going to automatically analyze that image and give you all of the AI functionalities that it can deliver based on, once again, what it sees on that image. So in this case, we can select choose best face, which I showed you earlier. We can remaster the image, which is essentially going to make it look higher resolution. We can also add a background blur. We can add a long exposure, which is a very weird effect for this specific image. But if you swipe up to a different image, like this one right here, you'll see that in this case, there's only one option, which is the remaster option to make it look higher definition. Generally, if you take a picture of a landscape, you'll find there is this erase shadows option, which is essentially going to erase pretty much all of the shadows. As you can see, it's pretty impressive and it works really well. Although I don't recommend you overuse it because the shadows were not necessarily making the picture look worse. And sometimes in some landscapes, if you're lucky, you'll also get the option for a 24-hour time lapse, which is essentially going to create the effect of a 24-hour time lapse for this image, making it seem like there it is. I think it's playing right now. It gets darker at night. You get all throughout the night, and then it lifts up again the next day. I'm not really sure why this is a feature that's only available in some specific landscape images. I guess it's because it's hard to create this effect. I think the general rule is that if you can see the sky, it is a viable option for a 24-hour time lapse. And well, coming back to the erase shadows effect that I talked about before, I think this is a really good example of a picture that could be enhanced if we could erase this shadow right here, because it basically shows my hand taking the picture. So let's swipe up and hopefully there it is. We can see the erase shadows option. And in a couple seconds, oh my God, that was a really good job. In about 3 seconds, it essentially erased the shadow that was making the picture look cheap with a almost 100% convincing effect. This is a weird color for sand. I think it's mixing the color of the car with the sand. But yeah, if you don't look too close, it's not very apparent. And it fixed the shadow problem. But anyways, that being said, I really hope you have enjoyed this video because it has taken me a long time to make. I'm not really sure how long it is, but it's probably over an hour. So yeah, if you have any remarks about any of the tips that I showed or any other thing regarding the S25 series, please tell me in the comments. And that said, I hope you have an amazing day and I'll see you again in a new video.